So a very good morning, and guess who somewhat underestimated the weather forecast? It is absolutely bitterly cold this morning and the tide is right in. So we're stood on a spillway and we're going to do a long exposure photograph just looking down the spillway, a minute's worth of exposure time, get all of the water nice and flat either side of it, and we're going to do a long exposure just looking back. Let's take a photograph and see how it turns out. So this is the first photograph that I have in mind today. You can see the tide either side of this spillway. And on the camera, we're just looking straight down it into the North Sea. Now, there's not a lot in terms of cloud interest in the sky here, so I don't know how this is going to turn out, but you can see the long exposure either side of it. It's going to look pretty fun. So we're down at f8, which is giving us a 60-second exposure time at base ISO of 200 on this camera. So let's go ahead using a 2-second timer, a 1-minute exposure looking straight down this spillway. Let's see how it turns out. So I've moved down onto the beach now, and when I say beach, there isn't an awful lot of it accessible at the minute. The tide is still coming right up to me. You can see just how far back I am against the beach. Anyway, there is an old pipe just in the water, and I thought we'd take a long exposure photograph of it. But the angle I'm trying to get it from at the minute is just completely inaccessible due to the waves. So I'm moved a little bit further back and we're just going to see what we can do from this kind of angle. So I've got the pipe just sort of coming in as a sort of a lone subject just coming in from one side of the frame, and I'm kind of hoping that the tide is going to continue to wash over it, so we'll just have the pipe sticking out of the water. I don't know how well this is going to work. I'm kind of down at f5.6 ISO 200. We're still getting a minute worth of exposure time using the ND64 on this camera, but I just don't know how well this photograph's going to work. I'll show you either way, but I just don't know. So I'm currently stood in a spot that I really don't feel too comfortable at, but I guess it's the only way to get the photograph. So I've got a 3-stop filter on, a 3-stop soft edge graduated filter, just taking some of the sky back. There's not a lot of cloud in the sky. The sun's just starting to come up now, so the sky's a lot brighter than this foreground. And the idea here is just to get the tide sloshing around. This old pipe and all this wooden work just in front of me, minute exposure time. Let's see what happens. I'm hoping a wave doesn't come along and completely ruin this party. So we're down at 6 seconds, f5.6, ISO 200, using a 2-second timer. Here we go. A minute exposure. Let's see how it turns out. So I kind of really feel as if I've misunderstood and misread the conditions this morning. You see, the tide's great, the tide is in, the tide is sloshing around everything that I came out to take a photograph of, but the really clear sky, you can see the sun rising over there, the sky is so clear, it's just making it look really bland in the sky, and while the tide sloshing around looks great, the lack of any kind of cloud is just making the skies look a little bit meh, and it's kind of translating to the photos, I think. So I think we may just take 5 minutes, go find something new, have a little bit of a think, and just see what we can pull off. I mean, the camera's doing great, it's kind of me, it's just I expected a little bit more in terms of sky, and well, a really clear morning doesn't really lend well to cloudy skies, does it? Which is a bit of a shame. So let's have a walk down the beach, see if we can find something new, and see if we can sort of work with the conditions that we've got this morning, see if we can at least salvage one photograph from this morning. Ugh. You know, I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of wondering if I've maybe picked a bad location this morning. See, I've come down to Hornsea Beach, and the idea was to take long exposure photos of all of the groins and the wooden planks and everything all around the beach. And I'm just not feeling it. I think it's the conditions in the sky like I previously spoke about. So I've been walking around and I've just not really seen anything that's, you know, caught my eye and got the, ooh, I really want to take a photograph of it. The idea was a few minutes ago to take a photograph of the wooden boards and all of the pipe and everything. And before I managed to even get the cameras out, I was stood there and a wave came across and it absolutely just drenched me. So It's about 3 degrees, so you can imagine how annoyed I am right now at being really cold and really wet. I love photography, it's great fun sometimes, especially at this time of year. Right, sun's now up. I can see the sun has now broken the horizon, which is going to be a bit of a fun stifler. I'm kind of at a loss right now. This is not something that usually happens, I find myself at a bit of a loss. So I think I may channel the inner Gary Goff. We may get up a little bit higher. We may find something with a longer lens and just sort of single out, you know, a boardwalk or some groin with a tide moving around it, and just see if we can't do something really minimalistic, which is meaning I'm going to have to get into Photoshop and start doing stuff. And I don't like going into Photoshop and doing stuff. Right, new plan of attack. Let's find something. Let's find a minimalist black and white long exposure photograph. And hopefully I can salvage this morning and take a photograph that I like. So I am so unbelievably wet right now, but I think I found something that's going to work how I want it to. So we have these wooden groins and a little post just sort of determining where the end of these is. And the waves are still smashing around it really quite nicely, despite the fact that the sun's coming up. I'm kind of getting the exposure time that I want, but you can see what the waves are doing. They keep coming up and like kind of halfway up my shins. So I am really wet and really cold right now. Let's have a look. So that was only a 60. I'm actually shivering. This is horrendous. Right, so ISO 400 is not where we want to be for this. So let's drop this down by a stop. So ISO 200, f8, a 60-second exposure time, and I'm hoping that the waves are still going to come high enough up. So here we go. So here's a wave that's just come right up the beach, which is what I want. So I'm hoping to get the complete smoking out of the water either side of this groin. And I'm going to attempt to blend this in with the sky, either in Lightroom or in Photoshop, and get something like really minimalistic looking. It's possibly going to be black and white because there's no point doing it colour. Because the only thing that's colour is the scene. It's quite blue and, well, it's kind of how I feel at the minute, and it's probably the same colour I am. So I'm using a polarising filter, a 3-stop filter, a 3-stop soft edge graduated filter, and the ND64 built into the camera to do this, which is giving me a long enough shutter speed to get something. I am really shivering now. Here's another wave. Hopefully that's coming right up the beach. I think this photograph's going to work out all right. I'll show you it in a minute. Man, it's cold. So my advice to anybody that's thinking of picking up photography, especially at this time of year, is to really just pay attention to the weather and the tides and just plan things a little bit better than I have this morning. I came to a location, the weather wasn't there, the location probably not the best, but we've been out, we've taken a couple of photographs. I may have a couple that I can salvage from today, but I'll be honest, it's not been the best of experiences, and the photographs are probably not going to be my best work, and I am really, really cold. Always check the tide, always check the weather, and if you're doing long exposures, a little bit more cloud probably helps. But if you did enjoy the video, please do give it a like and a thumbs up. It does help the video and it brings new viewers to see my content. And if you want to see something a little bit better from me in the future, do click the subscribe button and, you know, you'll get notifications and things like that. Sorry, I'm rambling. I'm so cold and a little bit irritated. So I'm going to go home. I'm going to go through all of this together and let's just see what happens. So until the next time, I'm going to love you and leave you and just say peace and goodbye.